It was a quiet Sunday morning on the Isle of Sodor. Thomas and Percy had stayed the night in Islesborough after helping the 15-inch gauge railway with extra Saturday night passenger trains. They had just woken up from a long night's sleep when they heard James's whistle. I wonder what he's doing here. I don't know, Percy, but I'm sure we'll find out. James was running light engine, which Thomas found very strange. The 260 stopped at the platform, and the Fat Controller stepped down from his footplate to walk into the station office. Hello, Thomas. Wait, what are you and Percy doing here? If you must know, they stayed the night here after helping hundreds of people get to Islesborough to see the SS Vienna. The captain kindly told us a story about how some tugboats gave her a good send-off when she left an American port back in the 1920s, amongst other events. Well, Jock, I'm surprised you've managed to stay sane when you had to share the sidings with those stupid losers. Hey, we're not stupid! In the words of Private Frank Pike, I would like to second that. Oh really? Let's see about that. Now Thomas, you have 69 seconds to tell me what was the most impractical steam locomotive ever built. The Lancashire and Yorkshire Class 28? Say that again? I mean the Pennsylvania Railroad S1. Silly me. Silly you. That's what I thought you said, Thomas. Now Percy, who shamelessly stole a Rick James song and turned it into a rap thing? Oh, I know. It was W.C. Sledgehammer. You silly tosser. How could you not know who the artist was? It was clearly Madonna. Or was it Phil Collins? I can't remember. How am I the only Sudrian that's heard of MC Hammer? Probably because we actually have a decent taste in music. Now who wants to hear all about their bass? Oh, me please. Me too! Lord save me. Several excruciatingly bad songs later, Disco Duck was the straw that broke the camel's back, and at this point James was so fed up that he was ready to reenact the iconic station joke. But before he could shove off to Kirk Ronan, the Fat Controller returned. Excuse me, but could you keep the noise down? I'm trying to have an important meeting with the small controller. So what you're saying is that you're having a meeting with your polar opposite? Be quiet, Percival. Sir, why are you here on Altef in the first place? I'm arranging for your railway to supply a huge ballast order for the standard gauge lines. We haven't reballasted the main line in a very long time. Not since the night Henry crashed while hauling that fish train. I remember puffing past the wreck on the morning after and whispering, "I'm red," for no reason at all. And speaking of red things, James, I would like you to take charge of the extra ballast trains. Doc and Oliver will help. Sod that! I'm not going to be stuck working with those Great Western supremacists. I'm off to hold passenger trains with Gordon instead. The Fat Controller tried to reason with the stubborn 260, but before the man could say anything else, James raced off back to Tidmouth. Great, now how am I going to get back to Knapford? There aren't any passenger trains down the Little Western until tomorrow morning, and my car is at the repair shop getting its suspension upgraded. Such is the nature of the Ever-Spartan Sunday service. I heard that cars usually get their suspension upgraded so they can handle heavier loads better. Percival, if you make one more fat joke, you'll take the plunge off that damaged pier again. Either that, or I'll replace your coal with the suspicious green gunk I stepped in this morning. Blimey, I didn't think the water in the harbour was that polluted. Percy saw to it that he kept his trap shut, and with that minor predicament sorted out, the Fat Controller lumbered back across the station to resume his meeting. Mate, Joking about the fat controller when we're in our normal sheds is bad enough, but to tell those jokes right to his face? I'm surprised he hasn't made you go on that damaged pier again. Sorry, Thomas. My sense of humour is naturally cheeky and immature, and I can't really do much about it. Excuse me, Thomas. Who is going to help Doc and Oliver with those ballast trains if James doesn't want to do it? I guess it'll have to be Percy and I. If you don't mind me asking, Jock, how did you get your name? I've only just realised that it's somewhat unusual for a locomotive. Oh, it's nothing too unusual as far as I'm concerned, especially when compared to Caldee's design. You see, when Douglas saw me for the first time, he said my livery reminded him of the locomotives on the Highland Railway, and apparently those things were nicknamed Jocks. Ah, I suppose that makes sense. Suddenly, the Fat Controller returned with Mr. Fergus Duncan, otherwise known as the Small Controller. The former had overheard Thomas's assumption, which turned out to be right. And Lodge, I'm sorry for James's rudeness earlier. I'll deal with him the first chance I get. Thank you, sir. When do we start those ballast runs? 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll ask Mavish to help run the passenger service on the Farquhar branch along with Daisy. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. I dare say Toby will probably get fobbed off with all the milk runs again. I thought Daisy would have learnt her lesson after the time I rear-ended another train and got perched on a wagon. Yes indeed, but for now, I want you two to go and arrange the wagons at Tidmouth before bringing them up here in the morning. Oliver will be there to help you. Yes sir, we won't let you down. Leave your coaches here, Jock. I want you to go up to the ballast quarry and help Sigrid arrange our own wagons. There's a lot of hard work to do tomorrow. Certainly, sir. I just hope it doesn't interfere with the passenger trains. And with that, the little 262 set off and headed up the line. Over the next week, Thomas, Percy and the Westerners were kept very busy hauling the extra trains. Meanwhile, the Caledonian 812s were tasked with maintaining the passenger service. They didn't mind this job, although they had always preferred freight services. Meanwhile, James was smirking to himself as he sat in the shed at Knapford. That plan worked out better than I expected. Now I can just sit here and do nothing all day. James, what are you doing here? Bunking off work, are you? That's rich coming from you. Never mind that now, just answer my question. Alright, fine. I didn't want to haul ballast trains with Thomas and Percy, so I ran off to take passengers instead. Or rather, that's what I said I was going to do. You know you could have helped Donald and Douglas with their services, right? You didn't need to just laze around in the shed all day. Oh aye? And what am I supposed to do instead? Well, for starters, you could go and fetch the coaches I've just shunted. They're needed for a private charter later today. And I'm guessing you can't take them because you're too slow for mainline runs. That's correct. Just a minute. Why can't Gordon or Henry take the train? Because Gordon's out on his normal express run, and earlier today I took Henry to Grovin's Gate Workshops. Oh yes, I did hear him complaining about boiler problems again. You'd have thought his visit to Crewe would have fixed the issues. Apparently not. His driver and fireman suspect that he may have hairline cracks in his pistons after he strained himself to shove 2 failed diesels down their trains, or that his crown sheet is worn out. Either way, it sounds like he's cucked us. You're lucky you don't have those sorts of issues, Dennis. I suppose I'd better shove off. Good luck, James. It wasn't long before James pulled into Netford Station. He stole one of Gordon's lines from the first Season 1 episode, then got underway towards Grovin's Gate. As the Reader 260 puffed along the line, he couldn't help wondering if he had been a little too harsh on the tank engines when he met them at Alsborough. Meanwhile, Thomas and Percy were waiting at the northern end of the Little Western for Mike to arrive with another ballast train. Hey Thomas, I can hear the sound of dinosaur feet stomping along the ground. Oh wait, it's just the Fat Controller coming to talk to us again. Well, you'd better keep your trap shut. I'll do all the talking this time. Yes, Uncle Thomas. Ah, Thomas and Percy, it's a good thing you're still here. I'm afraid James has broken down at the signal box by the big hill. I want you to go and help him at once. After that, can we use him as a paintball target as punishment for being rude to us? As much as I would like to bring his ego down, no. Oh, you're no fun anymore. Just a minute, who's going to look after these wagons? Oh, blast! I didn't think of that. I guess I'll sort it out soon enough, but you'd better get a move on anyway. James is hauling a private charter, and the passengers are getting impatient and irritable. If you don't mind me asking, sir, who was on that train? A rich tour group from London, although I suppose they're not rich anymore. They wanted to ride on our railway before seeing the fancy steamboats up at Lakeside. Very well then. Come on, Percy, let's go and rescue that big red douchebag. I hope Derek is able to handle this lot, but he's bound to have teething troubles again. It's no wonder BR doesn't like the Class 17. The tank engines took much longer to reach the signal box than they initially thought, no thanks to a certain Class 17 breaking down and obstructing their path. but they eventually found a James sat in the middle of the line looking very ashamed of himself. Ah, Thomas and Percy. Thank God someone has come to help me. What's the problem, James? I don't know exactly. Driver was inspecting my valve gear not long before you two arrived. He couldn't see anything wrong, but I dare say the lads at Croven's Gate will find the problem. Right, well, let's get you on the move again. Oh, before you do, I want to apologise for calling you stupid the other day. I've been secretly racked with guilt this whole time. Apology accepted, James. The locomotives had to work hard in an effort to make up for lost time. Eventually, they made it to Croven's Gate, where Aeneas was waiting to take the passengers up to Lakeside to see the steamboats. Once the passengers were aboard, the little 040 well tank whistled goodbye and set off for the mountains. I say, what a good show, chaps. Thank you, Fred. Although Percy and I feel quite worn out. Just our luck, and we still have to take one more ballast train. Do you mean to say you just left it at Alsborough? We had no choice. If our controller told us to get moving immediately, otherwise the passengers would have missed their connection with Aeneas. I dare say your controller has found other locomotives to handle the work. That's what Thomas thought, until he and Percy got stuck behind a failed derrick on their way to rescue me. You know, as a chubby pink starfish once said, "Oh darn it, not again." Oi, Fred! Are you going to help me with this weed killer train, or am I going to have to take it myself again? Of course I am, Rusty. I was just chatting with Thomas and his friends, that's all. Likely story. Is he the narrow gauge equivalent of Dennis? What are you implying, James? Never mind that now, we've got work to do. Alright, fine, I'm going. And with that, a reluctant Fred coupled up to Rusty, and the double header proceeded up their line, leaving the standard gauge engines to reflect on the recent events. Soon enough, it was time for Thomas and Percy to return to Alsborough, leaving James to be inspected by the workmen. Even though he didn't really like being in the workshops, he at least had Henry for company, and he could still look forward to the day he could return to service. Or maybe just banking off hauling freight trains again, I'm not sure. Epilogue. Hi James, how are you keeping, old boy? Terribly. The Fat Controller banned me from hauling passenger trains because he doesn't trust me after the charter incident. So I've heard. Ha! Sucks to be you! Belt up, Dennis! Ugh. Thomas, when can I start hauling passenger trains again? James, it's only been 5 minutes. Oh, you have got to be kidding me.